Hey, you guys. Okay. Welcome back. If you're one of my subscribers, I appreciate you for watching. And if you're brand new, welcome to. Stick around, see if you like my content. I do a lot of different topics here on my channel. While I'm in the energy of it, I want to get this started. Okay. I know sometimes I can be kind of random, different things on the channel, but I really am trying to get better about consistency and follow up with things. Earlier in the week, I posted some different things, and I mentioned that I was going to be getting into the topic of sleep paralysis, okay? Deep experiences that I've had with this and knowledge that I have about it and what that turned into for me. I'm very excited about that. It's something that I often see and hear a lot of people struggle with. I see a lot of things online about it where people are very afraid of it. And it's a deep topic. It will not be the same experience for everyone. And then we're going to get on into the topic at hand, what this video is actually about. So moving along, but I just wanted to mention that for the viewers that and subscribers that commented and said that they are interested in that, I just wanted to say that is in the works. I will be getting to those topics, hopefully in the next few days, within the week. Okay. I'm excited about that. And, but let's get on into what this video is going to be about. Okay. While it's on my mind and in my energy, I recently learned of O.J. Simpson's passing. Okay. Here, I don't know exactly what day it is, but I know he recently passed within the week or the last 2 weeks. And at the time I saw this documentary posted up on Netflix, I had not realized he had passed. And then I found out within a couple of days so I guess it was all, I didn't know if it was like, oh, since he had passed away, now they're going to start posting all this OJ stuff on Netflix and everywhere. I guess that's what happened. I don't know. But it's called Made in America, O.J. Simpson. And it really took me down a rabbit hole, okay? Since this whole thing has happened with his passing, now this whole case and everything is kind of coming back up. It's bringing up a lot of memories for people. You know, we all remember, even if we didn't follow it. I was quite young. I was 17 years old when this happened in 1994. I did see it quite a bit on the news, but I was young and, I wasn't paying as much attention. Okay. I did in later years in my 20s and 30s occasionally do some research into the case and familiarize myself a bit with OJ and Nicole and their history and their families and whatnot, but not like I didn't like super study not like I have the Watts case or anything like that. I didn't like delve into it and study it over the years, like, with a fine tooth comb. I have been here recently, okay? It's a different thing now that I am in my 40s as a fully grown woman with a lot of experience behind me and relationships and marriage and divorce and knowledge of people with different personality types and psychological issues. And so it's a whole different thing for me to take a look at now at this age. But we can all remember, most of us can remember where we were when the O.J. Simpson trial was going on and when all of that happened back in the 90s, right? And the Bronco chase, O.J. running down the interstate and the Bronco, and I never knew until I watched the documentary recently. I didn't know that OJ wasn't driving himself. I always thought he was driving the damn Bronco, running from the cops. I did not know that his friend AC was actually driving and that OJ was in the back with a gun to his head. And I didn't know all that was going on. I guess because I paid very little attention. I would see news flashes of it. And then I was a kid. I was young. And it was like, get back to my soap opera or my programming or whatever the hell was on. But then later on in the tabloids, of course, I would see Nicole and OJ and Nicole plastered everywhere. And of course, I kept up, quite a bit. And I really did fancy Nicole. I thought she was beautiful. I thought she had a beautiful family. And I thought it was just devastating, unimaginable, you know? And I fancied OJ too. I didn't really know of him before all of that came about. But, you know, I thought like everyone else, you know, he was just a nice, handsome, funny guy. I think I had seen him in The Naked Gun in bits and pieces, and, you know, just an attractive, all around cool dude, whatever. Um, so anyway, I'm going to delve off into this just a little bit because I've kind of been taking it all in again. And, oh yeah, looking at it with what I know now, and, you know, it almost reminds me of certain bits and pieces of it. I can bring it all full circle. And there are elements of it that have great similarities to the Watts case. And I can break those down for you guys, and I will. This will probably be 2, maybe 3 parts, and we'll delve off into it, okay? But I just wanted you guys to know that first part, I will be getting into those topics that I have brought up and promised you guys. I just have to get to work on them, and I'm excited about that. But okay, the whole OJ Simpson thing, just watching the trial on Netflix again, and this time really paying attention. There was so much I did not know at that age, so much that I didn't realize had happened. And I know that I have to be kind of careful. This is a big topic. It's all coming back up for everybody. And there are people out there with very heated opinions about this. And, you know, it turned into something that it shouldn't have, basically. I mean, here's me, man. I'm not going to go as far as like Nancy Grace. I admire Nancy Grace, okay? I like a lot of her work, but I'm not trying to put a bunch of hate or anything like that out there. So that's not what I'm trying to do. You know, because I'm one of those people that even when somebody has wronged me or, you know, a great deal of the time, I'm a person that holds people accountable. Absolutely. And myself accountable for things. But at the same time, I am often one of those people that doesn't really like to carry hatred, that doesn't really like to carry all that stuffed down animosity and resentment and being vengeful, wasting a lot of my time and energy carrying that and thinking in those terms. So, you know, I'm not gonna sit up here and like, you know, I know I get pretty heated in some of my Watts case videos. Oh, hell yeah. There are some things that I will get that way about. But at the end of the day, I go on about my life and I don't carry a bunch of hatred or animosity or anything towards really anyone on this earth. And you know what? That has included my own abusers over my lifetime. I grew up in a very dysfunctional, abusive, rough situation. And I've had to do a lot of work over the years to come to terms with my different feelings and whatnot about my parents, my mother, my father. And in partnerships and relationships, there have been people that have hurt, betrayed, crossed lines they never should have crossed, treated me in ways they never should have done. Psychological, emotional, and other types of abuse in relationships, and being around addicts and things like that. I have encountered some shit in my life, okay? And I've had quite a lot of experiences. But as far as me carrying a bunch of repressed things that I didn't get to work through or sort through or confront or hold accountable, we don't always get to do that with people. We do it for ourselves. If we can't get to them or it's not safe or whatever the case is, we work on those things in ourselves and try to release them. For me personally, that's what works for me. So I'm kind of that person. So when it comes to me sitting up in here going, you know, about any of these people, whether they, whatever crime they committed, even if it makes me sick and disgusted to my core, and I really don't have, I'm just kind of indifferent of it, like Chris Watts. You know, there's certain things I think about that dude that I think he still gets way too many privileges. Even life in prison, sitting behind bars, not able to walk out and have any other freedom ever again, having no life, I still think he gets too many privileges. And, I have a lot of thoughts about that kind of thing. But what I'm saying is I'm not going to sit up on here and waste too much time putting too much hatred into, that murderer, about OJ or about Chris Watts or about anybody. That's just who I am. But I do want to examine some things. I like to share knowledge. I like to open the perspective of others. I like to discuss things and just take a look at things, okay? So that's kind of where I'm going with things. Do I get passionate and intense and heated about people and things sometimes? Absolutely. But it is what it is. I just kind of want y'all to know where I'm coming from. I'll say this. It is really hard to believe that O.J. Simpson could do such a thing, okay? And imagine how it was for his friends, okay? Which a lot of his friends, though, after the whole trial was over, if you watch this documentary on Netflix, stuff started coming out. Things that should have been, that if they had been presented and brought up and known at the trial, would have very likely changed the outcome. But a lot of people he went to in the months and years after the trial, and they knew. These were very close friends of OJ's. If you watch this documentary, and there are several other documentaries that you can find on YouTube and whatnot, where people who were his good friends knew. They knew the man. They knew his body language. They knew his feelings and emotions. They knew everything about him, and they knew that he was guilty, that he had done this, okay? But imagine what his friends kind of outside of that, the Brown family, they loved him like a son. Imagine what certain people, and we're just the public, we're just on the outside of this shit, seeing him as this charming, handsome, smiling, funny, fun persona, ex-football star, just this great guy, okay? And that's the nice, great image we have of him. And, imagine the people that were close to him, though, and they had this, they were, they knew him well, but like the Browns and people like that, they didn't know him well enough to, like his homeboys knew his every move, his every energy. I'm just saying, imagine what the people, most of the people around him that really knew him, that thought, I'll say that thought they really knew OJ. Imagine how hard it was for them to wrap their mind around. How could this personality be capable of this? What? Okay. So I will say it is really hard if you just look at O.J. Simpson, the persona, the image that he was addicted to and created for himself. And I won't say that his success was fake. I will not say that that man did not work hard to achieve what he wanted to become in life. But O.J. Simpson had issues, okay? And we're going to delve all into that. But what I'm saying is that image, all that is going to relate back to learning more about the narcissistic personality type. And there are many different types of them: the grandiose, the hidden covert, the malignant, the community. They can weave in and out of different types of narcissism depending on how comfortable they are. Okay. Oh, but yeah, it's written all over him. As I go back and look at his persona and really delve into it. But if we're just looking at face value on the surface, that is the persona, the classic. They build that for themselves, and that he was so attached. And it reminds me of somebody else I know that I knew personally, that I lived with for years. So attached. Again, y'all have probably heard me say this in other videos on my channel. They are often very attached to being seen as the good guy, the nice guy. the good boy. And if it's a female covert narcissist or grandiose narcissist or narcissistic personality disorder or any of those things, then the same thing. It can be male or female. There are lots of different, it's not just a man thing or anything like that. But in this particular case, we're talking about a man, again, O.J. Simpson. But you get what I'm saying. That's that thing. I want people to really start letting it, make things connect for them and start seeing things like this if they haven't before, they haven't realized things like this. But yes, that's that persona that a narcissist is so attached, because there are things inside of them that are unwell, that have never gotten well, and a great deal of the time it has to do with mother and father issues. It has to do with something stemming back from the childhood. Some kind of trauma, whether it was inflicted on them, abuse, neglect, shame, whether it was absent type parents, emotionally unavailable or addicted parents, or whether it was divorce, whether it was one of their parents had some kind of issues, any number of things can be considered a trauma in the childhood and really affect the emotional and psychological development of the child. But a lot of times, and they, of course, start developing the narcissistic defenses, which are quite toxic, and they start creating this false ego that they are very attached to, and they will not have you seeing them any other way. And they can be, of course, quite controlling. All kinds of things come with this list, but we can see these patterns in several different people. The person I knew and lived with was very much attached to that certain persona. And Chris Watts was another one who was quite attached to people believing he was the persona that he had created of nice guy, charming, good husband, good father, all around good guy. But a lot of times within their brain, this is something that they have not done in a healthy way. They have not gone about developing themselves and growing in a healthy way. And parts of their brain, parts of their emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, and that part of the brain has been damaged, has an arrested development, has stopped growing. Meanwhile, the rest of them can be fine. Great career, strong, intelligent, street smart, high IQ, and in different strokes in different cases. Now, the more covert narc like Chris Watts and the one I knew, they're going to be different in the way they do things than the more grandiose narc like O.J. Simpson. The more classic narcissist that's actually confident enough to openly be controlling. See, Chris Watts, all narcs want to control. All of them. Even the fragile, quiet, covert, but they go about it in a different way. In order for them to get control, they don't have the same confidence that a grandiose or classic narcissist like O.J. Simpson has. So the covert narcissist with so many, now don't get me wrong, O.J. Simpson too had a lot of insecurities, a lot of fears, a lot of things deep within. Oftentimes that's what drives people to create this great persona. And a lot of it is real. A lot of it is real success, real drive. They're using traumas and things and insecurities and got to be the best, got to be the best. They're using that. And that's okay. That's a wonderful thing. But a lot of times this comes in that package. And it's what you do with that. It's if you stop along the way and realize, hey, whoa, I don't need to let my ego get out there too damn far. I need to do a check on myself. Maybe I should go to a therapist. Maybe I should talk about some of the issues from my past. Maybe I should become more self-aware and start taking more accountability for how I'm acting, how I'm treating my family, and the way my coping skills and okay. But the covert narc, the more fragile, vulnerable covert narcissist doesn't even have, so if you think about it on a scale, if the grandiose narcissist who can be so cocky and openly controlling and doesn't really give a shit what people say or think of them can be, if low self-esteem and inferiority complexes and insecurities and abandonment fears and all kinds of I'm not good enough, so it's driving me. If that's in their fucking personality, then you got to imagine how low. If these types have low self-esteem and inferiority complexes, then you can't even imagine low enough on the radar to understand what goes on in the mind of a covert, hidden narcissist like Chris Watts, who does not have a shred of confidence enough to be comfortable. They are not comfortable letting people see them act out their worst defense mechanisms. They're very, very self-conscious. I mean, to an extreme degree, very self-conscious about it. And typically the public will not see it. Like OJ's friends could report, oh yeah, or people could report, oh yeah, he was this way about Nicole. And there were people on the documentary talking about, everything had to be about OJ. He was very, very controlling. Even at the poker game, nobody could leave till OJ left. That, and that. Okay. Covert narcissism like Chris Watts, you won't ever hear people reporting that. It's so hidden, and it only comes out on the wife at home. It only comes out with the partner at home in a setting where they can feel nice and safe and comfortable that nobody's going to know, and they've already got you hooked in. They know you. They wait till they know you're never going to leave them because they're terrified of abandonment. They wait. This comes out of their personality slowly, right? And so over time, they put on the perfect charm, in which OJ, the classic narcissist, does a lot of that too. That persona, classic charm in front of the public, and all this nice stuff, and so nice to the wife, and perfect speaking, and just nice guy image. But OJ had enough confidence to where he could relax and chill when the camera wasn't on him. His homies and his friends and more witnesses and more people knew his real side, and he wasn't really fucked up about that, letting that narcissistic side show. Okay, overly controlling and that kind of thing. A person like Watts will not do that. They will not let nobody else except the one target, the one person at home that's closest to them, where they feel safe and comfortable and they know you're not going to leave. And then slowly this type of bullshit starts coming out of their personality. Okay. And it would just ruin them. They just, don't ever want anybody to think that they're a bad guy, or that they are controlling or selfish or cocky, or it's just not something they're comfortable being. And that's good. You shouldn't be comfortable being like that, but they are like that. And that's the problem. It's twisted. But a covert narcissist, they, unlike the grandiose type like OJ, a covert hidden narcissist has such little confidence. I mean, it's almost it doesn't even register on the radar. It's so bad that they have to really work harder to get power and to manipulate. And they don't just walk up like OJ would, and how he controlled what his wife wore, and how he, controlled people at poker games, and just by taking the lead and insisting on it being that way and having no problem say, hey, we're going to do it like this. Okay. Watts' type of narcissism would not be comfortable like that. And I know other men like that too. I lived with one of them for quite a few years that was not comfortable But the problem is, even not comfortable enough to speak up when he was supposed to. Even not comfortable. That's why I'm saying so low on the radar of fear and insecurity and no confidence, and even wasn't confident enough to speak up when he should have been speaking up, when he should have been setting boundaries, when he should have been holding people accountable and speaking up for himself. Okay. And those types, they don't just come out and control people. Even you at home, for a long time, they will do it in a snake-like, web weaving, twisted way of using more coercive control, guilt tripping, self pitying, to weave you up into a web where they are actually controlling you, but they want to make it look like to the public, to the friends and family, that you are controlling them. That you're so controlling, you're so domineering, they just can't do anything because they always want to play a perpetual victim. So anyway, okay. We're going to get more into OJ and his case and Nicole. That's coming. But I wanted to get a few of these things out because it's interesting to me. Okay. The two cases and what goes on in the minds of people like this and men like this. And within their relationships and whatnot, because I've lived it. I mean, I've literally had to live these kinds of situations. And I just know that there's so many people out there that don't have a clue about any of this stuff. And I don't blame them. Of course, they wouldn't understand if they've never lived through it. You know, it's hard to wrap your mind around. I know that there's so many people that need to understand it for whatever reason, and they can't. They can't even fathom, like, what? But the thing with that covert type of fragile narcissist, since they feel so powerless, all narcissists are desperate for power. All humans want some power, and that's okay. You know, we all have to realize these things aren't all good or all bad. It's not so extreme. It doesn't make you a bad person if you want some power. Every human wants to feel some kind of powerful. We don't want to feel like little goo balls of worms in the floor, do we? No. Every human wants to feel powerful, and that's healthy. But it's when it goes rogue. It's when it goes pathological, like O.J. Simpson and Chris Watts. That is when it's an issue. It's abusive. It's overboard. It's way overcompensating for their issues within. Okay? So we can always see similarities in cases like this and people like this, even though there are extreme differences in these men and in their lifestyles and careers and the way that their toxic behaviors and narcissism manifested itself and certain things. There are extreme differences, but we can also talk about a lot of similarities and just examine these things. And I think it's interesting and it's helpful. Okay, so the covert narc has to go about theirs, like I say, in a totally different way. And what they will do, and they think it's slick. O.J. Simpson, he just took control. And everybody knew it. And that kind of narcissists don't give a shit what you think. They are the persona they created. O.J. Simpson. Damn it. And because I'm that, I am this persona I created, I can do whatever the fuck I want. And we'll get back into that in a minute. A person like Chris Watts with a more covert type of narcissism who is not comfortable at all doing, that kind of narcissism like OJ could, they think they're slick. And this is very important insight. I want people to know it. I lived with it for so long. The covert narc will put you in control. Like in OJ's marriage and in his life, he just took control. It was his way. This is what they're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And, where are you going with that car? And, he kind of was possessive over her and watchful over her and these types of things. And Chris Watts, on the other hand, a man like him with covert narcissism, with the even lower confidence, they're even scared of scaring you. They like, not only do they not want the public and outsiders to know how they are, but they're scared of letting you know too much of it at one time too, because they're scared they'll scare you off. Like it comes out slowly, okay? And they have a weird, slick, manipulative way of going about getting control over you. They're not direct and straightforward with that kind of confidence like Mr. Simpson. No, the covert narc will often put you in control first. Right. This is what the friends, family, and these bashers of Shanann Watts out here don't have a clue about. But she was so domineering and she was so emasculating and she just cared about herself and you don't have a fucking clue what it's like to live with a covert narcissist. Okay. So, but what they will do is they will downplay themselves, at home behind closed doors. They start regressing into all kinds of childhood stuff and until they really get to know you better. It's a mess, but they will put you in control. No, I want you to do it. And they'll play all of these head games and, act like they're just so sensitive and little boyish. And now if you were to take that picture or you were to wear that, it would make me feel some kind of, I don't know, it might hurt my feelings or I might feel kind of, and they do it in this weird pity. Pity is their fucking signature. Getting people to pity them. That is the signature for the covert type of narcissism. The grandiose narc like OJ don't want that shit. Not until they have to play that card. Their ego is way too big, okay? But a covert narc like Chris Watts, again, it's very tricky. And until you're living behind closed doors with it in the psychological warfare and the psychological madness of how they do it, it's so hard to understand. But it's a bait and switch. They basically stand back and emasculate themselves. That's how I need to word it. They basically stand back and emasculate themselves because they're so afraid and so awkward and so, while they're getting to know you and feeling their way around things for a year or two, or maybe even longer, and that they kind of shrink back. They're very scared to take the lead. They're scared to say their preferences to you, and they act like they will get you used to this, and it's like a setup for you because you didn't know. You didn't do anything wrong. You're just being you, but they will emasculate themselves down. Oh, no, honey, I prefer you drive today. Or, no, you do it. Whatever you want. They will lower themselves into such a doormat almost for the first 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years that you're dating or together. They get you to thinking that this, even if you're like, hey, that's not fair. I want to be fair. Even if you try to balance it out, they will insist on putting you in control. And so set you up and condition you to believe that this is how they actually are and that they are okay with it. And they are just so glad to have this strong woman and they love you like that. And it's just the way it is and everything's cool, even though you have no problem whatsoever encouraging them to be in their own power as a man. There's something about those covert I'm telling y'all. All right. So this is kind of the bait and switch scheme they pull. They put you in control, let you take the lead, and it fucks with them as a man too. Oh yeah, it fucks with their ego. They have a lot of shame and guilt and damn sure don't want anybody outside of y'all's relationship to know about this shit. So oftentimes they have to create a cover story for it. They have to make you the scapegoat and of course blame you. But yes, it's a bait and switch. They put you in control to get control of you. This way, I know it sounds strange, but I'm telling you, it's crazy. It's manipulative. It's one of those crazy psychological things that really only if you have lived through it will you even know what I'm talking about. But yeah, they stand back and put you in control of things so that they can go and cry little victim and oh, how dominating she is and oh, how much she spent but they are the puppet master of all of it. They are orchestrating and encouraging you on all of it and emasculating themselves down low because they feel so shitty about themselves. And it doesn't matter how much you pump them up, encourage them, carry their ego along, devoted to them. It does not fucking matter. Okay. And they will grow to resent you over time for this. And it's not even your fault. It's within their brain. It's them. Okay. They will grow to hate and resent you and want to undermine you. And it's a lot. It's a lot to get into, but I'm going to get back to the OJ thing. Okay. But I just wanted to kind of compare these two and talk about it a little bit and get some of this out, the tricks and traps of that covert, so you would have something to compare it to, the visual of another type of narcissist and the similarities and differences and whatnot. But yes, the type like Watts puts you in control and they do all these things, play the victim and whatnot. Meanwhile, they're in so much shame and as a man and so angry, self-loathing, literally disgusted with themselves at all times because they feel so low about it, but they can't seem to change it and get out of it. Go to a therapist or go somewhere and get to the root of that and push themselves to work through it, face it, admit it. Hell no. Okay. So they have to, of course, have a cover story to all their homies and their family and whatnot. Oh, that's her, man. That's her. I tried to talk to her. I try to do things and she just won't let me. No, they're covering up for their own lack inside and scapegoating their wife. It's not the wife at all. It's them. They were fucked in the head before they got to the marriage. They were carrying all that shit, all those bad wires and issues and feeling of emasculation and low self-worth and low self-esteem and inferiority complexes and all that shit before they got with that woman. That's exactly what was going on in the Watts case too. And so that's kind of how that goes. And as far as them being asking, well, how are they getting power and getting control by putting you in control and standing down? I'm going to tell you how. Instead of just taking power like OJ would or something like that, I'm going to tell you how. And it's a real slick thing too. But I lived with it for years. I got deeply off in his head. I loved this man. I truly did. I learned a lot from him. He's no longer here on this earth. But we had a lot of issues too. I'm going to tell you how. How would a man feel powerful? What would he gain from that? How would he actually gain control of you by putting you in control and standing down and emasculating himself and making himself look inferior? And okay, it all goes in one package. Here's what happens. By him doing that, they sit back in that little inferior web and not only get to play the victim card. Yeah, mom. Yeah, she's just terrible. She just spends all my money and she won't let me go anywhere. She won't let me do anything. And it'll be just the fucking opposite. You might have just sat there and asked them 10 times if they would like to go out or encourage them to go out or whatever the case was. Y'all see what I'm saying? It's that they get off and they get a high. They feel powerful in a different way. See, you have to understand it's different for every narcissist is wired differently. Every one of them has a different type of childhood trauma or issues, different level of severity with it. There are nuances and shades and degrees of all this stuff. So the covert narcissists, a lot of times, they're not after the kind of power that, say, the grandiose like OJ, They are just trying to get on the radar of feeling anything within themselves. It's the lowest thing. It's this cassette of darkness always beating down in their brain about how little they are, how nothing they are, how not important they are, how awkward they are, how they don't have any skills. It's just not good enough. And they may have come from a different upbringing than, say, the type of narcissist like OJ and have a different type of trauma, different type of childhood needs that they still need to meet, different healing that they still need to do within themselves. But How do they feel powerful? By putting you in control and slinking back in their masculinity, or slinking back, um, and not speaking up for themselves and letting them boss you, or letting you make all the choices, and really encouraging you to be in that role. That's how they feel powerful, because they are right where they want to be as far as loving to play the victim. They love to be able to triangulate different people against each other. So they just called mom, right? And got mom aggravated at you. And so then they're going to come back in there later and they're going to tell you what mom said. My mom said you shouldn't have been doing this, and that, dippy-da. Then you're going to get riled up and hurt. And that covert narcissist, what do they feel now that they have triangulated you and mom and all this? And a lot of times it's with other women too, or other part people. What do they feel? Power. That is how they get their power. I know what I'm talking about here. And many other little wormy ass, tricky ass, schoolyard, manipulative ass ways. Yes, that is one way that they feel powerful, in control. And it doesn't even, they're not like us. They're not sitting there thinking consciously, wow, I just manipulated that, and A, B, and C makes this, and wow, I'm so powerful. Look what I just did. They don't have, a lot of times they don't have the emotional maturity or the emotional intelligence even for it to occur to them, for them to analyze it, for them to be introspective and self-examine that way. It doesn't even occur to them. A lot of times they are that damaged that they're just doing it on autopilot. It's how they live. It's how they've been living. It's conditioned in them. Defense mechanisms and getting off on toxic release valves. And it's because that part of their brain is damaged. It has not grown. It hasn't continued to develop like the rest of their physical body and age, if that makes any sense. Okay. So that is one way. And I'm so glad I was able to get that out. Oh my God. I need to do another video entirely just about that. How, if you're telling me that a covert narcissist often puts everybody else in a position of power and encourages them and insists on them being in control and lowers themselves down, they dumb themselves down, and they almost emasculate themselves, and it's all up to you, honey, and I'm just whatever, and doormat. How in the fuck did they gain any power out of that? How are they getting control of you if they're not just taking control? I can't imagine that. So many people are confused by this and clueless about it because they think that a narcissist is just somebody that openly feels totally okay about being dominant and controlling. Sorry, that is not the case. That is not always the case. All right, so these covert narcs, that is one big way they gain power. They feel very powerful getting reactions from people, getting people off balanced, distressed, triangulated, people upset. And it's the stupidest shit, and it will make you mad because we're living in a world where we are actually our age, and the rest of our brain, I feel bad for them. I'm sorry they haven't been to a therapist. I'm sorry nobody intervened and took them to therapy. I'm sorry for whatever it was that happened in their childhood. If anybody has empathy for those kind of people, I know I do for sure. But the fact is, the rest of us had to do that work. Or we were fortunate enough to have somebody in our family or the courts or whoever it was intervene and take us to a therapist. Or when we got older, we realized we have some fucking issues and we better take a look at them. And we devoted the time and self-growth to ourselves. And most of us, we're trying to hold down a fucking job, a career, feed the children, get ready for work, plan our projects, create things, live life, clean the fucking house. We have things to do and think about. And when you live with a covert narcissistic man like Chris Watts, that's the kind of goofy shit they're sitting back doing all the fucking time at home. They're bored out of their brains. They haven't developed their own real sense of self and identity and what they are here for or love to do. They kind of just go along with what the wife says and take care of the kids and this and that. But they put themselves in that position. They don't work on themselves. They get highly offended if you point this out, on and on and on. And a lot of times, yes, they feel like the only way for them to get power is to sit up and do stupid shit like that all day long. And you damn right. That is why you often will see a woman living with a boyish, covert narcissist. They feel comfortable at home around you to regress into a boy and almost put you in mommy role. It's another conversation for another day. Nobody else knows this. It would be too embarrassing and humiliating for anybody else. So around most of their friends, family, and the public, it's just, yeah. They don't say too much, do they? There's a reason. Okay. And so, yes, to answer that question, that is how they get power. And that is how they feel in control. It's different dynamics, different mechanisms. There's a lot of different forms of control in this world. It doesn't have to just be just like I talked about OJ. Hey, wear this, wear that. Nobody leaves till I say. It doesn't have to be coming out like that energy. There's a lot of different forms of manipulative control, coercive control. Somebody said to me the other day, help is the sunny side of control. Think about that one for a minute. I'll talk about that in another video. How sometimes we go too far overboard to help other people in ways that we think are helping them, but they're actually not. Like enabling, helping people to the point where it's actually enabling them to carry out something toxic, or it's gotten toxic, or intervening, imposing, just forcing our help in certain ways on people that's not really helpful. That is another form of control. And men do it a lot too, men and women, but people overbearingly trying to give you too much. I'll pay for that. Let me do this. Let me take care of that for you. A lot of times that is not them genuinely trying to help you, just to give you a boost and see you happy and get on about your business in the world. Hell no. They will be back to collect. It's a hook. It's an insurance policy. It's an obligation. They're going to come back and get it 100-fold out of you. Yeah. So help is the sunny side of control. Now, put that into context. I didn't say don't help people. I didn't say don't have a loving, kind, helpful, generous heart. That's beautiful. But in certain contexts, help can be just the sunny side of control. All right, so O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson, that whole case, I am going to make a second video. I would like to be able to get some beautiful photographs up in it so that people can see who I'm talking about. I'll do my best. But I really wanted to make that point because people have asked me before, what do you even mean? The covert narc is sneaky and hidden and has everybody fooled. And how do they get power out of emasculating themselves and lowering themselves down and not sticking up for themselves and letting you do everything and walk on them or whatever? And how would they feel powerful? That's how they feel powerful. They sit back and they feel really big because they have secrets. They are pulling a lot of different strings and they're triangulating a lot of different people and they're getting a lot of different reactions and they know it, and they see all that going on and it makes them feel ultimately that they are in control of everybody. They are the ones behind the scenes driving everybody crazy, playing head games with everybody, confusing and chaotic, causing chaos. And it's the most childish, fucked up shit you'll ever have to get used to being around. And it's hard when you really love somebody like that. I've been there. Just like I believe Shanann was there. And it will frustrate you to no end. You'll be so damn irritated and mad because you don't have time for this shit. And you didn't realize at first that your man had that kind of problem. You didn't realize because they can be so high IQ, they can be educated, they can be skilled. You don't realize at first, and they talk a really big game. They talk everything you ever wanted to hear. They match every criteria that you, and it takes you a long time, and it's shocking. They wait a long time into the partnership or the marriage or living together to even let you see bits and pieces of this quirk. And when it really starts occurring to you that this person you love has some really serious quirks and issues, it's too late. You already love them so deeply. You are already in all the way. And of course, that I believe that's totally why we sometimes saw Shanann getting a bit snappy with him or getting a bit impatient with him or a bit irritated with him. And when you're living with a covert narcissist, it's going to rub off on everything. Your job, your parenting, your ability to be a mother, your ability to work. Of course, we're going to see a certain type of energy on her. And that's why. But yet these people out here wanting to bash her don't have a damn clue what it's like to live with a man like that. Same thing when you're living with an alcoholic. I could talk about that all day too. Okay, so I hope I have made that point well enough, and I hope to God that reaches some people and gives them a little bit more understanding into actually what's going on that people just aren't aware of with a personality type like that. But back to OJ and that whole thing. Okay, that's a big deal. That's going to be a big deal to tackle. But now that I look back at the case and I really go through it and watch the whole trial and everything included in this documentary and take in a lot of different information with the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience I have now, of course, OJ has narcissist written all over him. OJ has trauma, something from the childhood, either father or mother issues. He has it written all over him. As we get to know him beyond that persona that he really is so addicted and attached to everybody. Just see me as the nice guy. Just see me as the juice. I've even taken notes during this documentary that I will go through them with y'all in part 2. You know, things that have been said. And I think in one part he was like, y'all stop reporting fake news. Nobody wants opinions. They don't want interpretations. They don't want fake news. They don't want this. They don't want that. Just tell them who I am. Or the way he was saying it, it's like with a narcissist and a manipulator like that, there's always subtext, right? There's you always got to read between the lines of what they're saying, and it fucking pisses them off when you can. And when you do, it makes them so angry because they want to dominate your mind. They want to dominate everyone's perception of them, and they are so afraid of losing control of your mind, okay? And how you see them, no matter what they've done. All right, so, but he was like, and basically what he was saying, you know, you can always take their words and go, oh, okay. In the subtext, what you're really saying is, and it's true, in his energy, the energy behind the front, the energy behind the energy, he couldn't say this to the public, but it's what he meant. Just say and print in your magazines what I want you to say. Just print my false persona, the same one that everybody always loved, and print what I want you to say, what I want people to see and think of me, and that's it. And that's basically, you know, what he was saying. That's the gist of it with a narcissist. They are very controlling like that. So there's a lot to it, a lot to discuss. about the O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson. I want to get into her life. Beautiful woman, beautiful family. Um, and I want to discuss her life, her characteristics. Didn't even get to grow up really, was just starting to learn about herself as a woman. She had never known anything but OJ. Okay. And, I want to get into both of their lives. I want to get into their relationship dynamics as I kind of have the Watts case, because this is another very striking case to me. Um, and Nicole, um, although I didn't pay a lot of attention at 17, I did later study a lot about her life in my 20s and 30s and really, kind of learn who she was. And I was always fond of her. I always thought she was beautiful. And, um, she was the person before Shanann Watts that, in a way, she was quite inspiring to me. And it was just, that's another woman that, like Shanann Watts, but before I ever heard of Shanann's case, many, 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 many years, another woman that was beautiful and bright and a loving mother and just had a zest for life and loved to cook and loved to entertain and loved to be with her family and loved her husband. Nicole Brown loved OJ from the time she was 18 years old. And she just kept trying to make it work with him. Was she perfect? Fuck no. Who is? But again, she had the right to live. She had the right to her life, just the same as Shanann Watts. Just the same as Shanann was bright and beautiful and in love with life and loved to cook and loved to decorate and loved to be outgoing and loved her children, her family, and do all these things, that she loved her husband. The same as Nicole Brown did. And both of these women just kept trying to make it work and trying to make it work. Except in Nicole Brown's case, yes, there was very active violence against her a lot of the time over the years. And in Shanann Watts' case, it was a very different type of narcissistic abuse that I was describing earlier. The madness and the psychological torment and twistedness and whatever have you. But both of these women went through it, and both of them loved their husbands and kept trying to make things work. And it's very confusing when you're living with a man like that. It's hard for you to just say, oh, I don't feel anything. Bye. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. But there's a lot to it. But both of these women ended up viciously losing their lives. Okay. And just like in the O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown, in the murder of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman, during the autopsy, and it's widely known to us that these attacks were so bad that she had to have a collar around her neck during the funeral, that she was nearly decapitated. And we're not even professionals. We don't really need a medical examiner, but they did say this. The professionals did say, but we don't need them to tell us that this was hateful, the most hateful type of rage taken out on her body. And it is a crime of passion. When somebody puts that much rage into a murder, you can damn near just best believe it is a crime of passion. It is a crime from someone who really had intense emotion about you. I mean, and her body was cut up. Sloan Bella, of course, I talk about her a lot. She's covered this case. And she talked about how Nicole's chest and breasts were cut up. Now, I don't know. I didn't hear that talked about as much in the media. They only showed certain photos. Shanann Watts. Here we go. Now, her murder wasn't a stabbing. It wasn't quite as vicious. But we have the same thing. a vicious, horrible attack on her, smothering, choking her, and then taking her out and just dumping her with all of the rage and hate and disgust that he could. And we heard about these hurtful, hurtful things. I hate to even bring them up again, but for the sake of learning, okay, and making people aware, and for the sake of supporting people like that, and left her. She landed like that in that shallow ass grave, face first, with her bottom uncovered. The sick, disgusting way that he did his wife. In life, before her death, the betrayal, the pain, the coldness, the cruelness he put on her, the twistedness, and then in her death, and shaming her after her death like that, and then going on to lie on her after her death. All that is typical of a narcissist, no matter what kind they are. Grandiose, covert, yada, yada, yada. Typical. And so we look at these two women and these two cases, and we can pick out, there are a lot of similarities. There are a lot of things going on within, okay, that we can learn from, while they are very different cases and very different people, very different lives, okay? My video is getting a bit long. There will be a part 2, though, and I will get more deeply off into the O.J. Simpson trial. I'll touch on that a little bit, what people think about his guilty or not. That whole thing, I know, it was a really big deal, okay? But a lot came out after that trial. And, this documentary on Netflix, if you haven't seen it, watch it. Even close friends of his are like, oh my God. There were a couple people back then that were really close to him that were like, oh God. He basically, all but the words came out of his mouth to them that he was guilty, that he did this shit. So, and, I have some commentary. I have some things to say about the trial myself and the documentary, and I've taken quite a few notes. And then, like I said, I would like to get into talking about Nicole Brown as a woman and how she spent her entire life. And that was all she knew. And, it's very dangerous when you are getting ready to leave a narcissistic personality type. They don't take it well. And most of the time, they will punish you. Okay? Because oftentimes, I could get into that all day, how they don't want to lose control. They don't want to lose control. It is control they are addicted to. And it is controlling everyone's mind and perception of them they are addicted to. There's so much to it. But I do want to get more deeply off into these aspects of, what happened to her when, she's just trying to be her. And, am I trying to make out to look like she's perfectly innocent? No. Or Shanann either. But I shouldn't have to say anything about that. These are two human beings that had the right to live, no matter how attitude, or no matter how goody two-shoes, or I don't have to make them out to be Betty Crocker baking cookies in the oven. They partied. Nicole Simpson partied when she wanted to. She did things. She was a young, beautiful, active woman. But do I think it was to the extent that was harming her children, or that put her in jeopardy of it being people like that took her life? No, I don't. Okay? These two men became very dangerous at a certain point, Chris Watts and O.J. Simpson. And while Shanann wasn't trying to leave her husband, Nicole already had, but in both of these women's hearts, they still loved their husbands and really wanted them, really had a hard time letting go. And I'll get deeply off into those dynamics as well, Shanann, I don't know. It just blows my mind. It's just so much. I'll tell you what, guys, let me go ahead and wrap this one up for now. And I will refresh myself and regroup myself, get my notes together. I just wanted to blast this one off the top of my head, okay, and get it rolling. And I'll get my notes together, and I will, hopefully I'll be able to put some photographs and reference material and stuff into part 2 of this for you guys, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and get this one wrapped up and get it posted up for you guys. And I will be working all week this week on other videos as promised. And I thank you for watching. I thank you guys for all of your input, your support, your thoughts. Hit like and share my videos if you can. It really helps my channel to keep growing and to get exposure and to get this information and awareness and out there. I really do appreciate it. And if you're brand new here, hit subscribe. Stick around if you like my content, if you got something out of this. And I will see you guys in the next one, okay? Be safe.